Hey everyone, I'm Oliver and welcome back to another episode of the Easy English Podcast, the show that helps you to speak English more naturally and confidently while improving your English listening. And today we are going to talk about a topic that I don't think I've ever talked about on this podcast. And that is restaurants. Restaurants and cafes, that type of thing. So we're going to be looking a little bit about some different experiences in restaurants, some scenarios. And I know what you're thinking. I already know how to order food in English. And sure, maybe you know some phrases, but I'm going to take you through a real life restaurant scenario in this episode. From walking in the door to paying the bill. And I'm going to give you native expressions, pronunciation tips, and even some fun cultural insights along the way. So, are you ready? Are you hungry? Let's get started. This episode might be a little bit longer than usual because I want to cover a lot. But I'm going to try this slightly longer format and see what you guys think. So, before we get started, I want to quickly say that a few people have asked me about more complicated episodes. I understand that this podcast is aimed more at sort of intermediate English speakers, so we cover a variety of topics. I speak a little bit slower than I usually do and very clear, but I know there is a demand for more advanced topics and more advanced speaking. So what I'm going to do is on my Patreon, the link is in the description below, I already post more advanced speaking topics. So I look at news articles, and these are exclusive for Patreon members. But I'm also going to start doing more advanced English podcasts. So bonus episodes where I speak at normal speed. I'm still going to focus on being very clear, but I'm going to speak a little bit faster and use more complicated words. So if you're interested in that and you want to support this project, check out the link below and you can subscribe and sign up for the Patreon. All tiers and levels will have access to this. Okay, let's get started. Restaurants. So do you like going to restaurants? I would say in general, I go to restaurants quite a bit. Usually when I'm on holiday, when I travel, when I'm in a new place, and at home every month or two, I would go to a restaurant as well. And in the topic of restaurants, there are so many different areas. We can talk about the food, we can talk about ordering, we can talk about service, about booking a place in a restaurant. And also paying for it. So that process of paying for the bill. The bill is the check. In some languages, people call it a check. So how much money you owe the restaurant for the food and the service in some cases. If it's a fast food, so basically, what's the first thing that you do in a restaurant? We're going to walk through each step and process and learn some phrases along the way. So if it's a fast food place or a cafe, you usually just go up to the counter, so where the checkout is, or the till we say in the UK. But if it's a sit-down restaurant, usually you have to get a seat. Someone welcomes you at the entrance, they show you to your seat. And there are a few common phrases that they might say to you. They might say, "Hi, how many people are in your party?" And this means how many people are eating with you. They might ask you, do you have a reservation? So a booking in advance. Especially with busy restaurants, this is often the case. There have been so many occasions in the past when I have, and I still am really bad about it even today, where I turn up to a restaurant with friends. Maybe we're in the city and we just decide, oh, let's go get some food. And then we turn up and they ask, do you have a reservation? I say no, and they say, sorry, like we are full, we're fully booked. Or they tell you that you have to wait for a very long time. This is especially difficult at weekends when lots of people like to go for food. They like to go out and go to restaurants, and it can be very difficult to get a reservation. So it's definitely always better to book your reservation in advance, especially if you have more than 2 people, because it can be hard to get a table. So how do you respond naturally to these questions? So you could say something like, hi, we have a reservation under, so we say under, and then your name, the name that you've booked it. Or you could say, hi, it's just the 2 of us, maybe if you don't have a reservation. Or you could say, we don't have a reservation, and you can ask, is there a table available? So you don't say, is there a reservation available? You say, is there a table available? So usually, and this is a fun little tip for you, in the UK, we usually just say table for 3 or table for 2 instead of a table for 2 people or a table for 3 people. So this is quite a little trick if you want to sound a little bit more natural when you're looking or when you're asking for a table if you don't have a booking. Okay, so now we've got our table. We're in the restaurant, we've sat down, and the waiter gives us the menus. So now let's check out the menu. So we're sitting down, looking at the menu, and maybe you see something confusing. What if you don't know what a dish is, or you have a food allergy? How can you ask? Let's have a think about some good natural phrases that you can ask the waiter if you want to know a little bit more information or you need some help with what you're going to choose. So great phrase if you don't know what to order and you want some advice maybe on what is good, is what do you recommend? Yeah, just to the waiter, what do you recommend? Or you can ask, what's the most popular dish here? There's been many times I've went to restaurants and these questions have gotten me some very nice meals. They'll recommend to you what is popular, maybe what they like, and often it's a good way to find some nice, tasty dishes on the menu if you don't have your own ideas. And if you want to know what is in something, so maybe you have allergies or you're not quite sure, you can ask what's in this dish or what's in the, and then the dish name. When I say dish, I mean the meal. So whatever the meal is that you're asking about. And of course, if you have allergies, you can ask, like, does this contain? And then the allergy. So nuts, dairy, gluten. Does this contain nuts, dairy, gluten? In the UK, it is now law, and it's pretty standard. Everywhere you go, they will ask you, when you sit down in a restaurant, do you have any allergies? So if you do, just tell them, yes, I'm allergic to, and then whatever it is. If not, just say, no, I have no allergies, and they will continue. This question sometimes confuses people if they don't know the words, and it's a little bit unusual because in a lot of countries the waiter will not, or the staff won't ask this. You have to tell them. But in the UK, they will ask you. They will ask you if you have any allergies. And if you have trouble reading something on the menu, oh, bless me, if you have trouble reading something on the menu, because sometimes the words can be French or Italian or hard to say, just ask the waiter, how do you pronounce this? Or how do you say this correctly? And a fun little fact is, I guess, in many fancy restaurants especially, you do see a lot of French or Italian words. An example of this is if you like steak, you will see, filet mignon, for example. And it might be weird to see it written in English, especially if you don't know the words. So just ask. Ask how to say it. It's absolutely fine. So now it's time to order. You understand the menu, you've picked what you want, maybe you've got a recommendation, and a mistake here that a lot of learners make is saying, I want too much. So I want. This is fine, but it's not the most natural option in English. It's not necessarily how native speakers would say it. So let's take a simple example. If you want to order pizza, sure, you can say, I want a pizza, or I want a pepperoni pizza. It's not wrong, it's not grammatically wrong, but it doesn't sound very natural. It sounds very direct, and the better way to say this would be, can I have a pizza, please? Or could I have the pizza, please? Or you could say, I'll have the pizza, please. That's another way to say it. And if you want to be extra polite, yes, you can use could instead. So could I get the pizza, please? And if you need some extra information about this, if you're ordering meat, they'll often ask you, how would you like it cooked? And that's when you say that you would like it cooked, medium rare, well done, that type of thing. The waiter will probably ask you if you would like a side dish, so fries or potatoes or that type of things. So it's better to make sure that you remember to order your sides. And also in the UK specifically, here is a good tip. So instead of just asking for water, if you would like water, make sure to ask that you would like some tap water because it's free. So if you ask for water, sometimes they will bring you, in many countries, bottled water, and they'll charge you for it. It'll cost money. So it's better to ask for tap water. So could we get some tap water for the table, please? And don't worry, in the UK, tap water is very safe to drink and of a very high quality. So you can ask for tap water and get a nice free drink with your meal. Okay, so you've placed your order and let's look at some special requests. So what I mean by this is sometimes you might want to change something with your order or your dish. Maybe you want a burger without pickles or without cheese, for example. Or you would like your coffee with a different type of milk instead of regular milk. How can you ask this? So some phrases for you that I've written down. You could say, for example, with the burger, can I get the burger without onions? Or could I have this with extra cheese? Or if you want to be very fancy and you want to replace something, you can say, I'd like to substitute the fries for a salad, please. And if they can't do it, the waiter might say, I'm sorry, we can't make substitutions, we can't make the changes. But if that happens, you can just say, no problem, that's fine. Or just, I'll have it without the item that I don't want. Okay, so you've been brought your food, you've had your food, and the meal was amazing. And now it's time to pay the bill. So to pay for the meal. But how can you ask for the bill? let's take a look at how best to ask for the bill. Okay, so some phrases we can use. I think you only need to know one phrase, and that is, could we get the bill, please? Or if it's just you, can I get the bill, please? Could I get the bill, please? Any of those variations. So this brings me on to a little topic which I know some people feel quite strongly about, and that is tipping. So what is tipping? To tip is to give extra. So extra money for service. And I know in every country this is not normal. But in the US, tipping is expected. It's really expected. And people expect about 15 to 20% of the total bill in tips extra. So that's quite a lot. But in the UK, we don't always tip. So in most cases, outside of cities around the country, you don't get asked for a tip, and you don't really have to give one either. But in some restaurants, and I have noticed this more and more, there is a service charge included on the bill. It's technically optional, but they do add it on automatically, and it's usually about 10%. You can ask them to take it off, but it is quite awkward probably to do so. I haven't noticed this in every restaurant. I notice it more in big cities, like in London. It seems to be quite standard everywhere, 10 to 15%. But in my own home, Northern Ireland, I never really see it that much. I don't see tips added onto the bill. Usually it is optional. The only time that I see it, most of the time, is if you have more than 4 people. So like a party or a group of 5 or more. Then they usually add on a service charge of 10% because there's a lot of people. But again, I think it's optional in most cases. So that's everything related to paying. And that's really it with the process of ordering food at a restaurant, like a native speaker, in my opinion. So we've looked at from the moment that you walk in the door to paying the bill. And you've now got all of the phrases and little cultural tips too, to be able to order confidently. But before you go to a restaurant, I would have a challenge for you. Next time you eat out, try using at least 3 of these new phrases if you're somewhere that you can use English, and let me know how it goes. But I suppose the final bit I'd like to talk about is the idea around restaurant service and maybe if you need to make a complaint as well. So in the UK, I think that we have quite a bad complaints culture. So people don't really complain when they have bad service. So often they will go to a restaurant and let's say they don't like something or the service has been very bad. Most of the time, people don't say anything. They just smile, say everything is great, and then they never go back to the restaurant. And they tell all their friends that it was terrible, but they never said anything to the restaurant itself. You know, I've had bad experiences in restaurants, of course. And recently in a restaurant, I had like a very bad service experience. So it was well over an hour, about 90 minutes to get my food, a very long time. And by that point, everyone else that I was there with had already eaten their food, they'd finished, and they were ready to go. So I was very unhappy. But I decided it's best to, tell them that you're not happy. So I told them multiple times, like I complained, and I said, I'm not happy with the service. There's a problem with this, or I've had to wait too long. And in the end, they give me my meal for free. So I did get contacted by the manager afterwards of the restaurant, and he brought me and my wife back and gave us like a full free dining experience. And we were very impressed with the customer service that came off of the complaint. They admitted the problem, they admitted that it was bad, and then they made it right. So yeah, on complaints, I would say, although it's not necessarily culturally very normal or common here, I think it's the right thing to do. If you're not happy with something, you're much better to tell the restaurant staff, maybe to tell the manager, to leave a review, and express your experience and how you felt. Because in general, it's the only way for a restaurant to be able to get the feedback and properly improve. And it also gives them that opportunity to try to show you good customer service and show you that they can see what they have done wrong and to make it better and right. So yeah, that was just a little bit on customer service and why I think that, if you have a problem when you're in a restaurant, make sure to complain. So finally, I would say, yeah, restaurants are great. They're a nice way to get out, spend some time with friends, and try new food. Another thing I think that is great about going to different restaurants is experiencing new things. Make sure to challenge yourself and try different dishes that you've never had before, especially if you're traveling. Order things that you wouldn't usually order, and it makes this process of eating and going to restaurants a new experience, something more exciting and more interesting, and you'll remember it. You'll remember it so much better. I think in the past, I used to always choose very safe options in restaurants. Food and dishes that I know that I like, but then I end up eating the same things all the time. So I do, when I travel, try to challenge myself a little bit more to order things that sound a little bit more interesting, a bit more different, stuff that I've never tried before. So challenge yourself. I know some people are like that. They do like to try lots of different things, and others, they stick to what they know. But I think it's a good thing for everyone to experience something different, and to try different cuisines. And it's a great way to learn about and understand the culture of the country better. I know the UK doesn't get a great reputation in general for British food, but there are a lot of very nice local dishes that you can try. Lots of very simple dishes, but with high quality, tasty ingredients. And I think that the cuisine, so the food of a country, often reflects the culture. British food is quite simple. It's very high calorie, very simple, very filling. And this comes from the time in the past with a lot of industry. So industrial development and like working culture. So a lot of like working class culture. And as a result, the food really reflects that. It's very based around having quick food, which is simple, easy to cook, and high calories to give workers the energy that they need for the day. So that's just a small insight, a little bit into what I think about British cuisine. But if it's done correctly, it should have very high quality ingredients, very simple ingredients with great flavors. So the next time you visit the UK, try some traditional British food, not just fish and chips. Do try, traditional Sunday roast dinner, beef Wellington, like all these wonderful, tasty dishes that you can try. So thank you so much for listening. I hope that this different episode format looking through, a common experience that people have has been helpful for you. And if you're new, make sure that you follow the podcast or subscribe and leave a comment to let me know where you're from and what you thought of the episode. And as always, if you would like some more advanced episodes, check out the Patreon link in the description below. Thank you so much for listening and have an amazing rest of your day. Goodbye.